Welcome back to CryptosRUs. I am George. We're all George. So today, happy Friday. Is it happy? Well, let's talk about what happened since yesterday to today, why investors are scrambling for safe havens, and why Bitcoin is the one not to be forgotten. Bitcoin awaits the call. It's the right call. So let's talk about everything. And are we going to see a recovery today? Let's do it. Let's do it, guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are starting out a day at 105. Just take a second to think about that. We are starting out a day at 105. We're not starting out a day at 95. We're not starting out a day at 85. We're starting out the day at 105, which is basically the same level we were last week. So I know a lot of people are disappointed with what happened yesterday. You know, obviously we came down from 110, but we're still holding strong at where we are. So take a second, take a breather, and realize that Bitcoin is still holding very, very strong, despite what's happening out there. And if you look at the US market, well, not so good at open right now, right? Dow is down 400 points, NASDAQ down 148. So even though today there is a little sell-off, Bitcoin is remaining strong. So what, of course, is causing the sell-off? Most of you guys did watch my video from last night. Basically, it's because Israel decided to strike Iran, a preemptive strike, and hit a lot of their nuclear program targets. Not so much anywhere else, but it was something that they felt like they needed to do. Okay. So Trump is urging Iran to reach some kind of deal before there's nothing left. And his argument is, the U.S. produces some really good weapons, really, really good weapons, and Israel has a lot of them. So he's urging Iran to make a deal before it continues, right? So that's the latest update. And on CNN, there's a lot more stuff here showing how Iran suspends all domestic and international flights. Netanyahu will speak to Trump today. And Trump tells CNN Israel strikes on Iran were very successful. Israel military says country needs to prepare for prolonged operation. So it's full-blown war right now. Okay. And I don't know how this is going to end. I don't know how long it's going to be and how it's going to end. What I do know is this. When there's uncertainty, when there's war, people tend to flock to safe havens. And what do you think about people in the region, right, that definitely want to get out or want to move their money out or protect their wealth, right? A lot of times they do need to convert from their fiat into something else. Converting to gold, physical gold in a time like this, not ideal. Converting to Bitcoin is. That's why you see Bitcoin adoption growing in so many places with turmoil and hyperinflation and other reasons, right? So I found an old article because I'm like, okay, so what has happened in previous times when war erupted with Bitcoin? And I think you guys can remember the last time this happened was all the way back a few years ago in 2022 when Ukraine and Russia went to war, and it's still ongoing, right? But look at this headline. Bitcoin skids to a 6-month low as fears of Ukraine conflict shake markets. So this one is talking about, this is a reminder of January 4th, 2022. Bitcoin tumbled almost 9% on Monday to its lowest in 6 months as fear of a Russian attack on Ukraine saw riskier assets worldwide extend their sell-off. So Bitcoin went down to $33,000. This was only a few months from Bitcoin hitting its top of 69,000. So, I mean, there's two reasons for that. One, the bubble burst because the Fed was increasing their rates. Two, because of the war, right? But it goes to show you how strong Bitcoin is now versus before. Even though Bitcoin went up to as high as 69,000 in a past cycle, seemed like it was mature, seemed like it was seen as a safe haven. It really wasn't. Not yet. This cycle is very different. Look at how strong things are now. And look at how strong Bitcoin has become with all the geopolitical and macro factors at play that are actually quite negative. It's actually helping Bitcoin. So this narrative of safe haven and Bitcoin becoming one of them, it's becoming truer and truer every single cycle. And that's fantastic. Of course, that's fantastic, right? That's why we're in it. And that's why so many are turning to Bitcoin, right? Look at these other headlines. Dollar rallies. Like right now, that makes no sense. People are flocking to dollars, right? Maybe temporarily, that makes sense, right? You want to have that cash pile in case things are going lower. I get that. But long term, that's the worst thing you could do. To stockpile a whole bunch of cash long term, you're getting robbed about 7% every single year due to inflation. You need to hold assets. Same thing, treasury yield rise, basically dollars. People are flocking to dollars right now. Short term, maybe. Long term, no. And I argue right now, great time to be DCAing, even though Bitcoin didn't really come down. But the alts did, right? And oil also jumped up 8% because of what's happening right now. Now, oil going up is not a good thing, obviously, right? Makes things more expensive. Shipping becomes a lot more expensive. Flights, packages become a lot more expensive. Also, just production of things that have plastic, gasoline prices. You got a whole lot of stuff that becomes more expensive with crude oil jumping up. However, there are other reserves and everything around the world. The U.S. has its own. So there are ways to offset this. But overall, this is not going to help things right now because we're looking for rates to come down. We want inflation to stay low. We don't want inflation to go higher. And if this causes inflation to go higher, not going to be a good case for Powell to cut the Fed fund rate, even though Trump wants him to. Trump called out how he should. I saw a clip yesterday, and this was something I was talking about. Trump called out saying that Powell needs to lower the interest rate by 1%. And why does he think this is necessary? He said because if Powell cuts the interest rate by just 1%, the U.S. will save $300 billion on interest payments alone because of the new bonds that we need to issue. He didn't say it like that, but that's what he meant. We have so much bonds maturing, we need to issue new bonds. And the simple fact that the interest rate is 1% higher than before means that we will pay $300 billion more in interest payment. And if you lower it by 2%, that'll be $600 billion. That's according to his math. I'm assuming someone fact-checked it. And he's like, he should do it because if inflation goes up, then he could hike the rates again. He's not opposed to that. But again, this goes to show you why high interest rates actually sucks, not only for consumers because all of our things are more expensive, like mortgages and car loans and credit cards and anything that deals with borrowing money, but the U.S. also borrows money, and the U.S. has borrowed so much we can't even pay off the interest. We have over $1 trillion interest per year based on what the nation has borrowed. That's why we need Bitcoin. because the US and other countries, we're nowhere close to paying that deficit off. Ever. We never make enough. We never make a surplus to be able to even cause a little dent, let alone think about paying the whole thing off. No one is actually doing that. So inflation will be forever. The printing will be forever. Borrowing will be forever. And eventually all collapses it every single time. You just got to give it a few decades, or maybe give it a few centuries. But it happens. Bitcoin. Look at this. Even though yesterday we started selling off, mostly from Fidelity, 200 billion from Fidelity outflowed, but not for BlackRock. BlackRock still took in 288 million. It's very hard for BlackRock to outflow for very long. In fact, there's only so many days. I would argue since the beginning to now, which is about a year, maybe BlackRock had two dozen, 3 dozen times where you actually saw red. Everything else is either zero or inflow. But if you look at the other funds, you could see how it's a very different picture. They have outflows all the time, probably half the time, but not BlackRock. BlackRock tries to maintain inflow as much as possible because Larry Fink is going to continue buying. GameStop is also raising $2.25 billion. Guess why? To straighten its crypto strategy, but mostly to buy Bitcoin, right? He is embracing, GameStop is embracing what strategy is doing, and so many others are doing so. You know, it's nice to see GameStop try new things. Their card grading in the stores have done pretty well for them. They sell a lot of cards now besides just video games. I still like to see them utilize their stores for more Bitcoin related services. Like, for example, you go walk in at GameStop and actually purchase Bitcoin or Ethereum or Solana. They convert all of their chain stores to become like localized exchanges. That would be unique rather than have Bitcoin ATMs. And, you know, people that don't really understand it. But if they allow that, I think that would be really cool. Hopefully they're thinking about that, because I think that would be a game changer. But besides that, Anthony Pompliano, one of the OGs in this space, is leading a new Bitcoin buying group, raising $750 million. Again, the whole purpose of this group, this new company, is just to acquire Bitcoin. And we have seen many, many, many come out recently to do the same thing. Jack Mallers has one, that's with Tether. You got so many that are just accumulating Bitcoin. The sole purpose, strategy at least, has a business intelligence arm, but I don't know if Saylor retired that. But all these others are being created just for a sole purpose of buying Bitcoin. Even Polkadot, some people are still Polkadot fans. This is interesting. They have a new proposal to convert 500,000 DOT and buy Bitcoin with it and DCA over time. It's not too much. If you do the conversion, it's like $16 million, okay? It would be a lot better if they did it with 5 million DOT or 50 million DOT and made it real serious, acquire hundreds of millions or billions of Bitcoin. That would help them. And I think more projects should do this. Why not? Why not? So many of them have such a large treasury. They don't know what to do with it. But if they actually hold Bitcoin, that would actually give them real value. Because a lot of these projects have really no value, right? It's all theoretical based on what they can accomplish or, their theoretical throughput, even though no one is using them. Why not hold some Bitcoin? That makes a whole lot of sense. But I'm glad to see it. All right, a few other things. So, the dip yesterday, I kind of explained this. It wiped out a lot of longs for sure because we went to the downside. right? But a lot of these like sudden moves, I honestly believe are just the market makers clearing out liquidity. That's it. You know, you still have guys like James Nguyen that's still boasting, doing a 40x, you know, on whatever. I think he moved on to Ethereum. You know, when you do stuff like that, the market makers are paying attention. And they don't like it when people make a whole bunch of money, because that means they're going to lose a whole bunch of money. Right? So a lot of times I just feel like it's just shakeouts. Just like in my video yesterday, I explained this right here. It's the same thing. It was just the absolute shakeout due to some whatever bad news that was announced, and I don't even remember what it was anymore. But yeah, we had a shakeout and a complete recovery right afterwards. Like within a day. Right? So, yeah, a lot of times I just feel like we get these like little shakeouts. It's not like it's a huge move. Not like we went down 20% and came back. It was like a few percentage points. Same thing with yesterday to today. We went down to like 102.7. We didn't quite hit the line, although, you know, we were close. We're recovering now. Not to say that we're going to do a full V-shaped recovery right away, but we could. I just feel like a lot of these sudden moves just to clear out liquidity. That's it from the market makers. And that's why you don't want them to drive you out. You don't want them to scare you out, because what they're doing is just resetting things, and they make money as well by buying low, right? It makes a lot of sense. And I also asked, you know, because it seems like we have a lot more of these shakeout days than before. So I asked Grok for explanation. I'm like, why does it seem like we have a lot more shakeouts now than previous cycles? And Grok explained, it makes a lot of sense. If you look at trading volume, derivatives versus spot, we have about 30% more derivative trading now than last cycle. We also have less crypto on exchanges, which means there's more slippage. With big moves on exchanges, there's more slippage because there's less liquidity on them, especially for Bitcoin. So when you have a whale making $100 million move, it's going to affect things more than before because there's less of it on exchange. Actually, so if you think about it, it makes sense. That's the reason why we have a lot more of these shakeouts, it seems like. But keep in mind, the shakeouts, you know, the percentage moves is a lot lower than before. You look at 2021, you look at 2017, some of those shakeouts were like 10% in a day, 15% in a day. Now we're talking about 3% in a day, 5% in a day. So even though we have them, it's a lot more tame versus before. But we do seem to have more of these occurrences than ever before. And it makes sense based on what Grok told me. So you just got to be careful and just not be shaken out and not be so depressed every time we have a little dip, and know that these are golden buying opportunities and you want to take advantage before, look at this, all the governments and institutions buy out the entire supply. According to Glassnode and Gemini, 31% of Bitcoin is now held by governments and institutions. 31 freaking percent. Remember, Bitcoin was created for the people, by the people. It was a way for people to opt into something that was different, that isn't as corrupt. And it was a way for people to break the chains of 9 to 5 and attain financial freedom. I don't know if that was the original intent, but it certainly was the end result for many. So it can still do the same for so many of you guys if you just embrace it. This is not the top for Bitcoin. We are going a lot higher. A lot higher. So don't let these big boys buy everything. And this is also telling that the Google search interest for Bitcoin, the term Bitcoin, is at the same level as when Bitcoin was 16,000, which means there's not a whole lot of searches. That's what it means. And that shouldn't be the case. There's just way too many retail investors that are coming in and only searching for memes, only searching for the new hot gem, only looking to make a fortune within a very little time span, within weeks or months. They're not looking at years. But Bitcoin is the one that's, based on history, is guaranteed to go higher every single cycle. And it may take some years, but there's almost no risk. There's some risk, but a lot less than anything else. Everything else, a lot more risk, a lot less risk with Bitcoin. And you could still attain a lot of gains from it. Last few things. Bitcoin is still moving according to M2 money supply. The M2 money supply also has dips. So Bitcoin's dips actually correlate quite well. So keep that in mind. Nothing goes up in an infinite, forever pattern. There will be dips. There will always be dips. And here's something else that's interesting. Kaleo actually pointed this out. It took me a second to realize what he was talking about here. But you notice that the circle part and the white part looks awfully the same, except it's just extracted and made bigger. But if you look at Bitcoin's movement from, around May to now, it looks almost identical to what happened the first week of May. So it almost seems like, yeah, are the market makers doing this on purpose? Are the whales doing this on purpose? And if we are following the same pattern, well then, yeah, that breakout to the next level is around the corner. And we know that. We were right there. And we will get back there and form that next breakout. Right? Again, just stay strong, focused, DCA, ignore the FUD, ignore the distractions. That's it. That's it. All right, outside of Bitcoin, I saw some other big news like this. Walmart and Amazon, they may be coming out with their own stablecoins because they want to utilize the blockchain. Maybe they embrace Tether, I don't know, or they embrace USDC, or they just create their own. But these are giant names, household names with billions upon billions of dollars, right? And pretty soon, they may be buying Bitcoin too. So, everyone is looking at embracing crypto, whether it's a stable coin or a payment or a credit card. Yeah, speaking of credit cards, Coinbase is coming out with American Express card. That looks pretty cool. So it's coming out. Everyone want to utilize something. Spotify also is partnering with Stripe and Coinbase so that people that have Spotify stores can take crypto and stablecoins. Every single company is looking forward to it. And I saw this. FIFA Rivals, a lot of you guys like soccer, and then they also had FIfa Rivals, is launching on Mythical Games. It's actually a platform aimed to help game makers embrace Web3. But this project is on top of Polkadot. A lot of people, again, ask about Polkadot. What's going on in Polkadot? Well, Mythical Games, they are on top of Polkadot. And they're bringing a lot of mobile games and just really popular games to the space and helping them utilize Web3 features. So that's pretty cool. All right, that is pretty much it. Let's see. U.S. market still not looking so hot. Dow's down 600, NASDAQ down 186. Circle is still pumping like crazy today. So I think people are still anticipating that the Genius Act is right around the corner. But outside of that, you look at others, Robinhood's even, Coinbase barely down, MicroStrategy barely down. Again, safe haven. People are starting to recognize we got something else besides gold. Gold is doing well right now. It's almost $3,500 an ounce. But we got something better. We got pharmaceutical gold. We have Bitcoin. And I would actually like to see Bitcoin do well and rise up during these occasions. Right now, it's holding strong. But going forward, we will see days where when we have conflict, when we have war, Bitcoin actually starts skyrocketing. We're not quite there yet, but I think we're pretty close. Within this next cycle, within this cycle and next cycle, we're going to build a base where people will believe Bitcoin is the one to put your money into with conflict and with good times too. So you get the best of both worlds. All right. Let's do some Q&A. All right, let's see here. Happy Friday, everyone. Remember, 42 months. That's many, many, many months. That's almost 4 years. Eduardo, I appreciate that. 42 months. That's crazy. Do you see injective forming a new high this year? I don't know. I don't know, Eduardo. I like to say I think so, but alts have just not been doing that well. If we get a full-blown altcoin season, then yes. This cycle is proving why Bitcoin is the strongest. So every single time, like right now, if you look at like my right side here, you see how everything's like double digit downs. Like Sui's down 6%, XRP 2, Sol 4, Kaya's down 10, AVAX down 6, Sushi Swap, Lido, Pepe down 7. If this was a prior cycle, Bitcoin would be the same. Bitcoin would be down like 5%, 6% whenever we have like these kind of crises. Like I showed you guys, like the Ukraine conflict when it was starting, Bitcoin slid down 9% in that day. 9%. It shows you how strong Bitcoin is now, right? But retail, still not that strong. Retail has still a lot of lettuce hands, so they sell off the alts. But the institutions are not selling off Bitcoin. Institutions are holding on. In fact, they're buying more. They're DCAing more. They get it. We as a community need to be more like that with alts and with Bitcoin. Well, retaliatory strikes cause similar dip. Who knows? This may be baked in already. Unless, things go nuclear. Hopefully that's not the case. But a lot of times you see major sell-offs because people are just selling off everything in anticipation of something worse. And then whatever that worst thing happens, and then nothing happens anymore because the sell-off already happened. To be honest, things aren't looking that bad. If Wall Street was truly super worried right now, knock on wood, it's still early, but we have seen times where Dow opened up at minus 1,000 and it slid to minus 2,000 by the end of the day. We have seen NASDAQ go down, open up at minus 400 and slide to minus 1,000 by the end of the day. Right now, it's actually holding quite well. Bro, I placed a Forex long on ETH. Should I hold it or book profit for now? I can't tell you that. You have to figure that out. Joe says, hey, George, 5 to 6 weeks for possible SOL ETFs. Did BlackRock register for one? You know what? I don't recall if I seen BlackRock register for one, but others did. There's like 5 or 6 pending for SOL ETFs. I don't know if BlackRock is filed for one. If they didn't, they will. They will. Krista Tramp says, anyone with an ounce of honesty would see it's time to dump all crypto, get back when the bull run resumes, whether that's Q4 of 2028. How would you know that? Do you have a magic 8 ball that tells you the exact date to get back in? Because that's not how it's been this cycle. We have many stints that drove Bitcoin higher, and it could happen next month. It can happen with a big catalyst. It could happen whenever. When you sell it all and you try to time yourself to get back in, that never works, man. Never works. Just like this. We had this just a week ago. Or this parts. Imagine getting out in March and April when Bitcoin is 70s, 80s, thinking, I'm going to get out. And then you would have missed this. The best thing for Bitcoin, I had a conversation yesterday with a few people. Someone told me, they basically just put $200 in Bitcoin every single week. They don't even look at it. They just have an auto buy and that's it. Set and forget. And honestly, that's the best move. If you can ignore up and downs, and just continue to DCA. That's how you make the most money. People that actually just forget about it actually probably do better, because when you remove the emotions away and urges to like panic sell or something like that, or even panic buy at times, or FOMO, it's probably best. I shared this story before. Back in 2017, so when I first got in 2013, I got out at 2014 because I didn't understand the cycle that quite all that well, and plus back then it was like the second cycle, so you really had no basis to compare it to. So I came back in 2017 when Bitcoin was around 1,000 again, and I convinced, at the time I only had like $3,000, so I bought 3 Bitcoin. I convinced my mom to buy some Bitcoin, and then she convinced one of her friends to buy a Bitcoin. And that friend recently told her the friend bought 1 Bitcoin for $1,000 in 2017, forgot about it until like last year. So literally did not touch it, did not do anything with it for 7 years, and made 100x. She only heard about it when the news started talking about Bitcoin hitting 100K. And then she had to work with Coinbase to try to get her account back because she didn't remember her login or anything. She had to do KYC and do all that stuff. When she got it back, she found that 1 Bitcoin, and it's worth 100K. Sometimes that's what you need to do. Just set it and forget it. And then just check it years later and you'll be happy. Very, very happy. Carlton Way says, sometimes I delete my crypto apps to ignore the volatility. You don't have to delete them. Just don't check them. Crypto Architect must have been taxed a lot, though. Yeah, so what? You only get taxed if you make money, my friend. You could say, oh, well, I lost 100K. I don't have to pay any taxes, but you lost 100K. Of course, you go pay taxes on gains, man. Had she put it on ETH, she would be a millionaire. That's actually not true. In 2017, ETH at one point hit $400. If you look at what ETH is now, I don't know why ETH is not here. $2,500, that's not 100x. At the beginning of the year, ETH was like $40, then went to 400. I don't know what it ended up being at the peak of 2017, but you may be right. It depends on when she bought. If she would have bought ETH at 40 versus 400, but ETH rose really fast in 2017. No capital gains taxes in Texas. I don't believe that. And that would only be the state part, not your federal. You still have federal capital gains tax, though. I don't think you're correct about that. 2016 and before, yeah, if you look at the cycle the cycle before in 2015, 2016, Bitcoin went down to $160. ETH, I don't even know what it was, like dollars. I remember Litecoin going below $1 or $1 or something like that. That 2016 cycle, the low of 2016 would have been awesome to buy, but obviously not a whole lot of people were buying back then. Oh, look at this. Consumer sentiment reading rebounds to a much higher level than expected as people get over tariff shock. It could be because tariffs haven't really hit yet. Trump said in a few weeks, tariffs may actually start again, the blanket tariffs with every country that was paused, but maybe reinstated. But I guess this is good. It's not good for cutting rates, though. James, I have no idea. You may be hearing the hype, but I haven't. Oh, that's what it was, Southern Stacker. Yeah, I was trying to figure out what caused this to happen. It was the Elon Trump feud, which makes no sense. Why did it drop Bitcoin? It was just, again, I think the market makers just taking advantage of a bad situation and dropping markets. Just like what's happening right now. You get a lot of that, you know? You get a lot of these like sudden dips, right? Again, just market makers clearing out leverage and liquidity. And then we just recover right back up. But overall, you just look at it, we're just going sideways. So I'm not half right. I am right. You try to spin it like there's no capital gains tax. Just say there's no state tax. That's all you have to say. It's not even capital gains state tax that you don't have. You just don't have state tax. Like, I know Florida and Texas have no state tax. So, of course, there's no state tax. You're not going to pay capital gains state tax either. But federally, you do. It's not I'm half right. You were half wrong. Or you're 100% wrong. Not to call you out on it, but that's true. When you have no state tax, of course, you're not going to be paying capital gains state tax. You go to Dubai. You could go to Puerto Rico. I heard also Switzerland. You could go to Switzerland. They don't pay capital gains tax. They pay taxes, income taxes, but they don't have any capital gains tax. But I hear their income tax is pretty high. But if you go to Puerto Rico, there's no capital gains tax. You go to Dubai, there's no income taxes at all. I heard Dubai, people pay no taxes, not just capital gains, no taxes at all, even income. It's kind of crazy, but I wouldn't want to live in Dubai. It's nice to visit, but I wouldn't want to live there. It's just desert, the whole thing. You got a nice city and then desert everywhere. All right, guys, I'll let you go. Overall today, market's a little shook by the war situation, obviously, right? But Bitcoin is strong. It is a safe haven. More and more people will realize that as time moves forward, right? So stay strong, my friends. Don't panic. Continue to hodl in DCA, and have a good rest of your day. We'll try to do another Ask George segment tomorrow, then Sunday Walk, and I'll see you guys on Monday, 8:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. All right? Have a good one, guys. Take care.